Liu Xianyang's family heirloom has drawn the attention of forces far beyond anything he understands. Powerful outsiders are willing to offer wealth, status, even a future among the great sects, but beneath those offers lies a threat far more dangerous. Meanwhile, Song Jixin finally learns a shocking truth about his own identity, and the mysterious man beside him reveals a power capable of shaking the entire Great Li dynasty. As danger closes in, Chen Ping'an searches for a way to protect his friend, and deep into the night, an old hidden manual falls into his hands. A fist art called Mountain Shaking. This is Sword Comes Episode 8. Chen Ping'an was just about to explain on Liu Xianyang's behalf when the man said coldly, "Go back and tell that brat this. If I don't see him today, then he doesn't need to come to my forge tomorrow." Chen Ping'an hurriedly said, "Master Ruan, something happened at his house." The man cut him off without the slightest courtesy. "That's his business. What does it have to do with me?" Chen Ping'an had never been good with words. He stood there blankly, his face turning red with anxiety. Yet he did not know what else to say. He was afraid that if he kept talking, he might only make things worse. He had personally experienced Master Ruan's straightforward way of doing things. The girl in green tried to speak up for Chen Ping'an, but the man knew his daughter too well. Before she could say a word, he scolded her. "Eat your pancake!" The girl, carrying a belly full of grievance, suddenly strode forward and kicked the man squarely in the back. Then wind seemed to rise beneath her feet. In the blink of an eye, she vanished from sight. The man sighed. He pushed Chen Ping'an aside and continued walking. Chen Ping'an sighed too. Then he ran to a breakfast stall, bought a steamer basket containing 6 buns, and hurried back toward Mud Bottle Alley. When he returned home, he found Liu Xianyang still sitting on top of the wall. Half his body was leaning toward Song Jixin's courtyard. He was eavesdropping with complete concentration. Sometimes Chen Ping'an truly felt Liu Xianyang deserved a beating. He had no choice but to remind him. "I just ran into Master Ruan. He said you need to go help at the forge today. He also said that if you don't show up today, he'll fire you." Liu Xianyang replied without concern. "What's the rush? An apprentice as quick-handed, hard-working, and willing to suffer as me would be hard to find even if you searched with a lantern. Master Ruan is only trying to scare me. I'll go tomorrow morning. It'll be fine." Chen Ping'an shook his head. "I'm certain Master Ruan wasn't joking," Liu Xianyang said irritably. "I'll go in a little while. Don't interfere with my important business." Chen Ping'an brought breakfast to Ning Yao. He gave 3 buns directly to Liu Xianyang and ate only 1 himself. Liu Xianyang finished all 3 in a few bites. As he wiped his mouth, he whispered, "Song Jixin had a guest just now. One look and you could tell he was a major figure. If I'm not mistaken, he's the current kiln supervisor. That time he came to our dragon kiln in official robes. Old man Yao thought useless apprentices like you were an eyesore and didn't even let you show your faces. But I was different. Old man Yao actually had me demonstrate that so-called jumping knife technique for his excellency." Chen Ping'an smiled. The new kiln supervisor looking after Song Jixin is something everyone in town already knows. "What are you acting so suspicious about?" Liu Xianyang said worriedly. "A pretty-faced fellow like Song Jixin definitely can't beat me. But what if Jigui likes this impressive official instead? Then my chances won't be good. If your future sister-in-law runs off with someone else, what am I supposed to do?" "What are you supposed to do?" Chen Ping'an turned around and went straight back into the house. He left Liu Xianyang crouching on top of the wall, tormented by regret. Ning Yao sat beside the table. Her back was perfectly straight. One hand gripped the hilt of her saber. She looked as though she were facing a mortal enemy. Sweat had gathered across her forehead. This was the first time Chen Ping'an had ever seen such an expression on her face. Her body was tense and guarded, yet her eyes were shining brightly. Chen Ping'an stepped back toward the threshold. Ning Yao asked, "Do you know who the guest next door is?" Chen Ping'an answered. "Liu Xianyang says he's the current official in charge of the town's kilns. He seems easygoing. When I met him at the entrance to the alley, he even stepped aside to let me pass." Ning Yao sneered. "People like that are the truly frightening ones." Chen Ping'an looked confused. She asked, "When someone walks down a road and sees an ant, do they step on it?" Chen Ping'an thought for a moment. Gu Can definitely would. He often pours water over ant nests or blocks their entrances with stones. If Liu Xianyang is in a bad mood, he might do it too. Ning Yao was left speechless. Chen Ping'an grinned. "I actually understand what you mean, Miss Ning." She's looked surprised. "Really?" Chen Ping'an nodded. "I think there are 2 meanings. The first is that, in the eyes of outsiders like you, the ordinary people in our town are all ants crawling beneath your feet. The second is that there are different kinds of outsiders too. Fu Nanhua and Cai Jinjian are like children such as Gu Can. They find it interesting to hold an ant's life and death in their hands. Or perhaps they simply find the ants irritating. But the official who came to Mud Bottle Alley is different. The way he speaks and behaves will always match his status. That's why he's especially polite. Miss Ning, is that what you meant? Ning Yao asked. How did you think of that? The boy teased her in return. After getting your life back, your brain naturally becomes a little smarter. Ning Yao immediately became serious. Before you died, what did you see? I didn't see anything. Chen Ping'an looked slightly puzzled, but answered honestly. Actually, from beginning to end in that alley, I didn't think about much at all. You'd be better off asking Fananhua and Cai Jinjian. Maybe they could see something. Ning Yao snorted. What an impressive tone. After saying that, she stared at the straw-sandaled boy. Chen Ping'an became uneasy under her gaze. What is it? Ning Yao frowned. She looked annoyed. Then she muttered in her native dialect. My family's sword arts, whether the sword formulas, mental methods, or techniques for tempering the body and soul are all secret inheritances passed down through a single line. I haven't even finished learning them myself. How could I dare teach them to someone else? And I never bothered learning the crude beginner methods from other places. Otherwise, I could at least point him toward a proper path. Even if it only strengthened his body and extended his lifespan, that would still be useful. Where am I supposed to find some low-level introductory manual now? Her eyes suddenly lit up. Rob someone? No, that wouldn't be robbery. I'd just be borrowing a manual. Borrow it, return it. Perfectly reasonable. Unfortunately, her face quickly darkened again. She said bitterly, that damned old eunuch. Just wait. One day, I'll turn your entire imperial palace upside down. Then her expression collapsed. She looked miserable. Do I really have no choice but to find that swordsmith surnamed Ruan? He has 4 or 5 parts of my mother's true inheritance after all. But I don't know how to ask other people for favors. The straw-sandaled boy sat at the doorway. He looked at the girl named Ning Yao as she talked to herself. Her expressions changed constantly, like clouds gathering and scattering at the edge of the sky. A handsome man in white robes with a jade belt stood inside Song Jixin's room. He looked around and frowned slightly. The man surnamed Song arranged such a plain place for you? Song Jixin pursed his lips and said nothing. Jigui had already sensibly retreated to her own room. According to the most common story circulating through town, the former kiln supervisor, Lord Song, had not been particularly skilled at his work. He failed to produce imperial tribute porcelain capable of satisfying the court. All he had to show for his years of service was the covered bridge. When he returned to the capital to take up another post, he naturally left behind this illegitimate son, Song Jixin. He bought a maid to look after the boy's food and daily needs, then entrusted Song Jixin to a good friend, the new kiln supervisor who had replaced him. That man, people said, was also surnamed Song. But what the truth actually was, outsiders might not know at all. Song Jixin himself did not understand what relationship the man before him had with the former Lord Song. Were they government colleagues who trusted each other completely? Old schoolmates from years ago? Political opponents from rival factions in the capital? Before leaving, the former kiln supervisor had only said a few things. Once the new kiln supervisor arrived in town, he would soon take Song Jixin and Jigui away. They would go to the capital. And when dealing with this new lord, Song Jixin was to show the utmost respect. There could be no carelessness. Song Jixin looked at the imposing man from the capital standing before him. Perhaps because of resentment transferred from one person to another, he felt no goodwill toward the man at all. Before Jigui, Song Jixin had acted as though everything were already under control. He had appeared completely calm about leaving his homeland. That composure was mostly the pride of a young boy. The man smiled. Forget it. That sour old scholar surnamed Song has always been overly cautious. He doesn't act like one of the great lords at all. More like a woman. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been left here to look after you. Song Jixin's eyes immediately darkened. The man did not care. He glanced casually toward the boy's storage chest and curled his lip in disdain. Then he said slowly, before coming here, I met Fu Nanhua from Old Dragon City. What an unlucky young sapling. His Dao heart nearly shattered in this place. You can continue whatever business you have with him. I won't interfere in children's games like that. But before we leave, you will come with me to the covered bridge and kowtow a few times. After that, your part here is finished. You will return home with me. You will do the work you are supposed to do. Sit in the seat you are supposed to sit in. Fulfill the duties you are supposed to fulfill. It is that simple. Do you understand? Of course I understand. Lord Song's words aren't exactly difficult. Song Jixin sneered. But why should I? The man smiled. For the first time, he turned and looked directly at the boy. That effeminate fellow surnamed Song said you possessed extraordinary natural talent. His tongue didn't hurt from giving such praise? If you don't mind, take a guess. What do you think gives me the right? If one looked closely, the two of them actually resembled each other slightly. Song Jixin was furious, but from beginning to end, he suppressed his temper. The man did not make him guess for long. He said with amusement, what gives me the right? Perhaps because this king happens to be a heaven-grade unlucky bastard. And also your biological uncle. Song Jixin's heart shook violently. His face turned pale. The white-robed man acted as though he had not noticed. He rested both hands on his jade belt and looked toward the sky outside the window. Then he smiled. And perhaps because this king is the #1 martial artist in the entire Great Li dynasty. There was another way to phrase those words that would have sounded even more shocking. But the man would rather be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. If someone still stood above him, even 1 or 2 people, then he did not consider the title worth boasting about. He thought of the Confucian sage stationed in this place. Disdain touched the corner of his mouth. He snorted. If I weren't inside this particular piece of heaven and earth, I could kill a 3 teachings immortal like you, Qi Jingchun, with 1 hand. Inside the thatched schoolhouse, Master Qi listened to the children reading aloud. He sat upright, truly upright. Even gifted students such as Zhao Yao and Song Jixin would have found it difficult to understand the essence contained in that posture. Confucianism had a foundational classic known as the Great Rites. Its chapter on self-cultivation spoke specifically of how a gentleman should regard sitting itself as poetry. If the posture of an admired poet could be like a poem, then the gravity and solemnity within such a way of sitting were self-evident. At that moment, Qi Jingchun seemed to hear clearly the white-robed man's private thoughts. His expression remained calm and light. He smiled. A martial man holding the reins of a state is not necessarily a bad thing. Still, traveling incognito is hardly an auspicious sign. Footsteps sounded outside the neighboring courtyard. Liu Xianyang was just about to jump down from the wall when a voice came first. Well, aren't you one of Old Man Yao's apprentices? Your surname is Liu, isn't it? The white-robed kiln supervisor stepped beyond the threshold. He turned his head and smiled in Liu Xianyang's direction. Liu Xianyang immediately stiffened from head to toe. To his horror, he discovered that he did not even have the strength to jump down from the wall. He gave a guilty, forced laugh. Reporting to your excellency, yes, that's me. When your excellency came to our dragon kiln, my master had me demonstrate some of the finished work for you. The man nodded. He studied the tall boy. Then he went straight to the point. Do you want to go outside and see the wider world? For example, enlist in the army, fight on battlefields. I guarantee that if you work hard for 10 years, you can become a high-ranking officer. When that day comes, I will personally hold a victory banquet for you in the capital. What do you think? Song Jixin stood behind the man. His face was dark as water. In one hand, he clenched the old dragon jade pendant Fu Nanhua had given him, the carving showing a dragon dividing the clouds. For years, this talented young scholar had carried the labels illegitimate son and bastard. Now he knew the true identity of the man beside him. Because of that, he understood even better how much weight those words carried. The phrase personally hold a banquet would be one of the strongest life-saving talismans in Great Li. It would also become the longest ladder into the nobility that an official could ever hope to climb. Liu Xianyang, meanwhile, was desperately searching his mind for a few refined words. He stammered. Thank you for your excellency's favor, but I have already agreed to become an apprentice at Master Ruan's forge. I truly apologize. I hope your excellency won't. The words jammed in his throat. No matter how hard he tried, he could not remember them. His face turned crimson with frustration. Song Jixin, as though helpfully reading his mind, prompted him. You mean, I hope your excellency will not blame this humble one. The man in white smiled dismissively. It doesn't matter. If you ever get the chance to leave town, go to the nearest military mountain pass. Find a soldier named Liu Lingxi. Tell him Song Changjing of the capital recommended you for enlistment. If he doesn't believe you, then tell him this. Song Changjing says Liu Lingxi still owes him 30,000 heads from the Great Sui border cavalry. Liu Xianyang nodded stupidly. Yes, the man smiled and left. Song Jixin accompanied him to the courtyard gate and stopped. The man seemed to have calculated every thought in the boy's head. Without turning around, he said, Come with me to the kiln supervisor's office. I'll take you to meet someone. Song Jixin's feet seemed rooted to the ground. His face darkened. I'm not going. To the common people of the town, that government office was a place with an impossibly high threshold. To a boy who had grown up listening to rumors and filthy gossip, however, it was a dragon's pool and tiger's den. A barrier in his heart he had never crossed. The white-robed Prince of Great Li always acted decisively when outside. He did not become angry at the boy's refusal, nor did he stop walking. But his steps slowed. According to the records from the intelligence office, you have already met that Great Sui prince surnamed Gao, haven't you? Do you know this? The Gao clan of Great Sui and our Song clan of Great Li have been sworn enemies for 1,000 years. He is a prince, yet he dared enter a town located at the heart of enemy territory. And you, Song Jixin, are also a prince, yet you don't dare enter a small government office that sits on the map of your own dynasty? Song Jixin did not immediately examine the deeper meaning in those words. Instead, he turned toward Liu Xianyang. The tall boy remained seated on the wall, rubbing his hands and knees. He looked as though he had not heard a single word. The corner of the great Li prince's mouth rose slightly. The man had just received a pleasant surprise, as expected of the blood of our old Song family. But when he remembered that the boy was that woman's son, even this powerful regional prince and #1 martial grandmaster of Great Li felt an immediate headache. Troublesome. Very troublesome. Song Jixin gritted his teeth. Then he turned toward Jigui, who was standing at the door. "I'll be back soon. Don't save lunch for me." He stepped out of the courtyard. Then he suddenly looked back and smiled. "Take the loose silver from beside my bed and go buy that dragon and phoenix scented sash from the Du family shop. After all, once we leave, we probably won't need money like this anymore." Jigui nodded. Her eyes told him to be careful. Song Jixin smiled brightly and left. Only after he had gone far away did Liu Xianyang, still sitting on the wall, ask timidly, "Jigui, what exactly is the relationship between Song Jixin and that kiln supervisor?" Jigui looked at the tall boy with pity. Liu Xianyang finally could not endure that gaze. "What? He knows one official in charge of porcelain, and now he thinks he's something special?" Jigui curled her lips. She turned back into the courtyard, took out feed, and began feeding the old hen and her chicks. Liu Xianyang was not discouraged in the slightest. He jumped down from the wall and shouted toward the house across the way. "Chen, we're going to the forge! I'm not swallowing this humiliation anymore." With her back to the neighboring courtyard, Jigui smiled. A Buddha fights for one stick of incense. A man fights for one breath of pride. What a pity that a useless man can only fill his belly with resentment. Blood rushed to Liu Xianyang's head. Even his ears turned red. He strode to the earthen wall and slammed a fist against the top. "Wang Zhu, if you've got the courage, say that again." The maid tossed aside the corn kernels and chicken feed. She clapped the dust from her hands, turned around and smiled sweetly. "Who do you think you are? Just because you tell me to say it again, I have to obey." Liu Xianyang stared at the girl whose figure was gradually maturing and whose beauty seemed to increase by the day. He could not speak. His heart suddenly felt empty, as though a porcelain bowl inside it had fallen and shattered on the ground. Chen Ping'an had actually been standing near the doorway for some time. After seeing all this, he quickly entered the courtyard and said softly, "Let's go." The two boys walked side by side through the alley. After a while, Liu Xianyang suddenly asked, "Chen Ping, am I completely hopeless?" Chen Ping thought carefully. Then he answered seriously, "The neighbors all say my mother was a very good person. They also say my father was famously dull and awkward. So I think whether you like someone or not has nothing to do with whether you have promise." Liu Xianyang looked miserable. "Then I'm even worse off. Even if I work hard enough to build my own dragon kiln someday, or learn Master Ruan's true craft, she still won't like me." Chen Ping'an wisely kept his mouth shut. No need to throw oil on a burning fire. As he walked through the familiar alley, Chen Ping'an suddenly remembered something from years ago. He had followed Old Man Yao along the stream into the deep mountains. There, he saw a young deer drinking at the bank. It was not afraid of him. After drinking, it lowered its head and stared at the stream for a long time, refusing to leave. Besides the deer's reflection, a fish swam back and forth beneath the water. Before Chen Ping'an had left his ancestral house today, Ning Yao had advised him to leave town quickly, now that he had a pile of scholar tree leaves. With their invisible protection, he should not encounter any serious problems. Best not to remain here too long. She did not know whether Liu Xianyang's troubles might drag Chen Ping'an into danger as well. But Chen Ping'an insisted that he could only leave with peace of mind after personally seeing Liu Xianyang accepted as Master Ruan's disciple. Because years ago, without Liu Xianyang, Chen Ping'an would have starved to death. Of course, somewhere in his heart, Chen Ping'an also hoped Ning Yao could remain in his house until her injuries healed. But he had not dared say that aloud. He was afraid she would think he was behaving improperly. Chen Ping'an suddenly asked, "The treasure armor your grandfather left you, you absolutely can't sell it to outsiders, right?" Liu Xianyang looked at him as though the answer were obvious. "What nonsense! Of course I wouldn't sell it even if I died." He punched Chen Ping'an lightly in the shoulder. "I'm not obsessed with money like you." The tall boy clasped both hands behind his head. "There are some things you don't have now, but you can earn money and buy them later. But there are other things you lose once, and you'll never have them again in your entire life." Chen Ping'an murmured, "I understand." As they approached the entrance to Mud Bottle Alley, Liu Xianyang suddenly cursed. Chen Ping'an pulled himself from his thoughts and looked ahead. His mood immediately sank. It was Liu Zhengchun, the eldest young master of the Liu family from Fortune Street. Years ago, this was the same man who had led a group of rich young idlers to block Liu Xianyang in an alley and nearly beat him to death. If Chen Ping'an had not arrived in time and shouted for help, then with all of Liu Xianyang's older relatives already dead, he might truly have been thrown into the mass grave. At the time, Song Jixin had crouched on top of a wall and watched the entertainment. He even shouted encouragement. Later he told Chen Ping'an, with a little fear, that outside the town, behavior like Liu Zhengchun's was sometimes called acting as a wandering hero for the sake of brotherhood. Liu Zhengchun blocked Liu Xianyang's path and smiled. "Don't be nervous. I didn't come today to settle old scores with you. I came because Liu Xianyang cut him off. A good dog doesn't block the road. Move aside for your grandfather." Liu Zhengchun's face stiffened. He forced a smile. "Liu Xianyang, I genuinely came to discuss something with you this time. Last time, you ran away before we could even finish talking. That wasn't good. At the very least, you should listen to the conditions we're offering, right? If you think about it, the two of us could even be considered acquaintances forged through fighting. There's no need for things to be this tense. Like those guests, I'm very sincere." Liu Xianyang tilted his head and mocked him. "What? You've become addicted to acting as a broker for other people? I truly don't understand. You, Liu Zhengchun, are the grandson of one of the richest families in this entire town. So why are you always so eager to go around being an outsider's hunting dog?" Liu Zhengchun's face darkened, yet he still forced himself to smile. The result looked ridiculous. His voice was almost pleading. "Liu Xianyang, as long as you name a price, no matter what you want, they'll do their best to satisfy you. For example, money? Why don't you just give me a number? 150 strings of cash? Or 200? I can bargain on your behalf. 200 strings. That's enough to buy half a house on Fortune Street." Liu Xianyang stared into his eyes with contempt. 200 strings? You think you're throwing scraps to a beggar? And you call that sincerity? Stop putting on a show in front of me. Your grandfather has important business to handle. Get out of the way. At one corner near the entrance to Mud Bottle Alley, a beautiful little girl sat on the shoulders of a powerful old man. Beside them, a boy in a red robe held the hand of an elegant woman. He should have been at an innocent age, yet his face carried a sinister sharpness completely unsuited to childhood. In his native tongue, he asked, "Is that Liu fellow really that stupid? Why does he have to?" The woman shook her head and smiled gently. "When granting someone kindness, you must understand how to add a foot of favor and reduce a foot of resentment. When negotiating business, if you want the greatest profit, you must do as Liu Zhengchun is doing. First test where the other person's psychological bottom line lies." The boy looked puzzled. "Do we really need this much trouble just to do business with ignorant country bumpkins?" The woman smiled. "Human nature is complicated. The heart is dark. You cannot measure either by cultivation level. People from small places may have shallow experience, but that does not mean every one of them is a fool. If you continue thinking that way, sooner or later you will suffer for it." The boy gave a small "oh," then he asked, "Mother understands people so well. Why not simply negotiate with him yourself?" The woman patiently explained, "Look at how we are dressed. No matter where we go to buy something, any seller with a little intelligence will immediately raise the price." The boy sighed. "All these twists and turns are irritating." The woman crouched down. She cupped the child's cheeks in both hands and looked at a face almost identical to his father's. Her expression became serious. "Remember this, cultivating the heart is also cultivation. In favorable circumstances, cultivate strength. In adversity, cultivate the heart. Neither can be lacking." The boy shook his head and escaped her hands. He said angrily, "More empty principles, so annoying." The woman felt helpless, but she did not continue lecturing him. Her son possessed excellent talent, excellent foundations, and behind him stood two powerful family lines. His road was still very long. His temperament might be somewhat stubborn and gloomy, but that could be slowly tempered over time. Trying to force growth too quickly would be the real mistake. Listening to the tedious negotiation in the alley, the little girl sitting on the old man's shoulders became worried. "Buy you on, Grandpa. What if that person refuses to sell, no matter what? What do we do?" The old man had arms long enough to reach his knees. Almost like an ape, he smiled. "Then we let him die. This old servant came precisely to handle that worst possibility. Otherwise, all the money we prepared would be no different from throwing it away. Of course, if that happens, young Mrs. Safety will become slightly troublesome. We may have to entrust you to the Song family or the Li family." Leaving everything else aside, if it came to killing someone, the old man would indeed be expelled by the sage. But compared with gaining nothing at all, it would at least be like throwing a stone into water. There would be some splash. Still, unless absolutely necessary, the old man would never choose such a poor solution. The sword scripture might be of tremendous importance to righteous Sun Mountain. It might be treated as a supreme treasure, but compared with the great Tao of the young mist sitting on his shoulders, it was still far less important. At least, that was how the old man saw it. Among the 4 great surnames and 10 major clans of the town, The Liu clan stood at the very top. Outside the town, however, things were exactly the opposite. The Liu clan actually ranked last. A branch of the Liu family had once ruled an entire dynasty. After that dynasty was destroyed through a joint campaign by Great Li's two great border armies, the Liu clan standing in Eastern Treasure Bottle Continent became dangerously unstable. Back in the alley, Liu Xianyang listened as Liu Zhengchun spoke of high office, enormous wealth, and beautiful women beyond counting. Then, like Song Jixin carrying a book chest, he stepped forward and pointed directly at Liu Zhengchun's nose. That armor is an ancestral treasure of my Liu family. It has nothing to do with money. Even if you told me to move into your house today, and from now on you, Liu Zhengchun, called me grandpa every single day, I still wouldn't care. Liu, do you understand me now? Liu Zhengchun stood alone at the entrance to Mud Bottle Alley. He stared at the bastard before him. Liu Xianyang was obviously a man with nothing to lose. Young Master Liu truly wanted to smash his own head against the wall and die. Previously, when he had served as a negotiator near the covered bridge and intercepted Liu Xianyang on the way to the forge, things had already gone badly. After returning home to Fortune Street, once his grandfather finished entertaining the honored guests, the old man had secretly summoned him to a private chamber. He had not spoken harshly. He had not threatened him. He merely pointed toward a corpse beneath a white cloth and said, "Zhengchun, grandfather has no other demands. I only hope you won't let your younger brother die with his eyes open. By the 7th day, I hope you will already have left the town. Consider it seeing the outside world on his behalf." Liu Zhengchun's eyes suddenly grew wet. His voice trembled as he choked out, "Liu Xianyang, just consider this me begging you." "All right?" Liu Xianyang stared at him in shock. This young man who had always lived in embroidered clothes and eaten jade-like delicacies suddenly became weaker and more helpless by the second. His lips trembled. He could barely speak through his tears. "All right, I'll kneel to you. I'll admit I was wrong. Is that enough?" With a heavy thud, Liu Zhengchun dropped to his knees in the dirt of Mud Bottle Alley. Then he began kowtowing. A man's knees were said to contain gold. Yet the young man struck his forehead against the ground with frightening seriousness. Again, again, again. At the outer wall near Mud Bottle Alley, the little girl lightly kicked the old man's chest with her heels. Her mind had already wandered toward the mountains she had admired on the journey here. She was wondering which one she should choose and bring home. The red-robed boy, meanwhile, took obvious pleasure in Liu Zhengchun's misery. He casually asked, "Mother, has that Liu fellow gone mad? Are we really supposed to take a madman like this out of town with us? That would be humiliating." The woman's expression became complicated. She remembered many strange people and strange events she had personally witnessed. For a moment, she seemed about to speak. In the end, she only shook her head. No, Liu Xianyang did not know what to do with his hands. Even if he cracked his head open from thinking, he could not understand why Liu Zhengchun was doing this. This was the eldest grandson of the wealthiest household in town, and now he was kneeling at Liu Xianyang's feet, smashing his head against the ground. Liu Xianyang's expression became tangled. At that exact moment, the straw-sandaled boy, who had been watching both Liu Xianyang and Liu Zhengchun, suddenly tugged lightly on his sleeve. Chen Ping'an shook his head. His gaze was firm. Nothing needed to be said. Liu Xianyang was already beginning to soften. But the straw-sandaled boy Somyo Ningyao, considered a good person, revealed an almost iron-hard resolve. Chen Ping'an's instincts told him that if Liu Xianyang had agreed to sell before Liu Zhengchun knelt, then perhaps the worst that would happen was that he would suffer some loss in the deal. His life might not have been in danger. But now Liu Xianyang had entered the same kind of trap Chen Ping'an himself had once fallen into. At that time, if Master Qi had not acted, Chen Ping'an's fate would have been simple. Kill Fu Nanhua, then be killed. Perhaps by someone from Cloud Glow Mountain, perhaps by someone from Old Dragon City. Even more dangerously, according to the rules Ningyao had explained, Liu Zhengchun himself was a native of the town. If Liu Zhengchun or the Liu family wanted Liu Xianyang dead, Master Qi might very well be unable to interfere. Chen Ping'an's thoughts raced. While Liu Zhengchun was still desperately kowtowing, Chen Ping'an lowered his voice. "If there's no other way, pretend to agree. First we go to Master Ruan. Once he accepts you as a disciple, then we can decide what to do next." Liu Xianyang nodded. He said to Liu Zhengchun, "Friend, stand up first. Get up and we'll talk. What the hell are you doing? Does this look proper to you?" Liu Zhengchun did not stand. He raised his head. His swollen forehead was already covered in dirt. Liu Xianyang said helplessly, "But you should go back first. Discuss it with them. Come up with a reasonable price. Don't try to cheat me. I'm not an idiot. 200 strings of cash? Forget whether I would lose out. Wouldn't rich people like them feel embarrassed offering something that cheap?" Liu Zhengchun slowly stood. Then he smiled. "That makes sense. As long as you're willing to consider selling, that's enough. Liu Xianyang, from today onward, I, Liu Zhengchun, consider you my brother. It doesn't matter whether you recognize me. I recognize you. Liu Xianyang stepped closer. He threw an arm around Liu Zhengchun's shoulders and began walking with him toward the alley entrance. He comforted him. Old Liu, when you make it big later, don't forget to bring your brothers along for the good life. Once this deal is settled, I'll definitely invite you out for some fine wine. Liu Zhengchun wiped his forehead and laughed happily. Drinking is easy. What difficulty is there in that? And of course I'm paying. How could I let you spend the money? It's settled. If you try to argue, your older brother will get angry. Liu Xianyang laughed loudly. I knew you were an honest man, old Liu. Following you in the future really won't be bad. Chen Ping'an walked behind the two of them. He stayed slightly closer to the alley wall. His attention remained fixed on the movements beyond the entrance. The man in white led Song Jixin into the kiln supervisor's government compound. An elderly steward guided them to a private reception room. The steward explained that Scholar Li from the academy had traveled a great distance to come here and had already been waiting for more than half an hour. He had said he intended to visit the village school and pay respects to a senior of the Confucian tradition. Song Changjing did not care about that. He asked only, have you discovered which faction the assassin who died in the alley belonged to? The steward hesitated. Song Changjing frowned. What? The old man immediately bent forward in fear. It was the Song family of Fortune Street. Song Changjing sneered. They truly don't know how to bring this king even the smallest pleasant surprise. Sweat poured from the steward. Song Jixin remained silent. His eyes were burning. Inside the village school, Qi Jingchun gently set down his book. He turned his head. At the doorway stood a handsome young man, wearing a tall Confucian cap and scholar's robe. He smiled without speaking. Qi Jingchun's face remained calm. He said nothing. Elsewhere in town, a bald barefoot man dressed in strange clothing walked toward Iron Lock Well. He looked exhausted. Standing beside the deep well, he gazed downward. He pressed his palms together, closed his eyes, and whispered. When the Buddha looks into one bowl of water, he sees 108,000 living creatures. Outside the town, on the peak of a mountain, someone stood upon a thick branch. From afar, he observed the outline of the settlement. A tiger command tally hung at his waist. A long sword was strapped across his back. Beyond this enclosed piece of heaven and earth, another scene unfolded. A road sloped upward as though leading all the way into the sky. Clouds and mist surrounded it. No scenery could be seen in any direction. A young Taoist nun wearing a golden crown rode slowly upward on a white deer. Beside her walked a handsome Taoist priest, whose face was smooth as jade. His steps were light and effortless, like flowing water and drifting clouds. Two long fish, one green and one white, swam through the air around him. Confucian, Buddhist, Taoist, military, the three teachings and the martial path were almost all gathered in the little town. At the forge beside the stream south of town, father and daughter were hammering iron. Sparks flew everywhere. The man held a sword blank in his hands. He said to the ponytailed girl, for the next few days, don't go into town. The strength in the girl's hammer immediately weakened. She felt as though all the power in her body had vanished together with the snacks being sold in town. The man laughed angrily. Impressive progress. The girl transformed grief and indignation into strength. She brought the hammer down violently on the glowing sword blank. Beneath the brilliant firelight, the young girl looked like a god of flame descending into the mortal world. After leaving Mud Bottle Alley, Liu Xianyang and Chen Ping'an quickly discovered two groups waiting on opposite sides of the road. On one side stood the little girl riding on the shoulders of the imposing old man. On the other stood the arrogant red-robed boy beside the elegant woman. Liu Xianyang walked between them with calm, unhurried steps. In the eyes of the white-haired old man, the tall boy showed at least a trace of a general's bearing. The straw-sandaled boy walking beside him, however, was obviously doing his utmost to conceal how cautious and restrained he felt. That was hardly worth the old man's attention. After bidding farewell to the two boys, Liu Zhengchun remained standing where he was, nervous and uneasy. He said carefully, Liu Xianyang asks that the honored immortals offer him a proper price. If you do, he is willing to sell the family heirloom the next time you speak. The woman turned toward the white-haired elder from Righteous Sun Mountain. She smiled. What does Senior Yuan think? The old man thought for a moment. Then he said in a deep voice, 3 attempts are enough. Since Liu Xianyang has finally spoken, then let us give him a fortune grand enough to touch the heavens. Righteous Sun Mountain can grant the boy the status of a true direct disciple of the mountain. In addition, I will personally lend him a magical treasure for several hundred years. As for your Shu family of Qingfeng City, decide for yourselves what you wish to offer. The woman looked shocked. The status of a true direct disciple of Righteous Sun Mountain is already extraordinarily noble. And Senior Yuan is even willing to lend him a magical treasure? Could this Liu boy also be a cultivation genius? The old man pretended not to hear. Instead, he smiled toward the young miss sitting on his shoulders. There are many interesting shops in town, each with a deep history. Young miss may go take a look. Perhaps you'll find something worthwhile. The little girl immediately shouted excitedly. Go, go, go! Senior Yuan, the chief guardian of Righteous Sun Mountain, laughed heartily and began jogging. He looked like a moving mountain. The red-robed boy watched them go and smiled. Righteous Sun Mountain certainly knows how to make an impressive display. The woman motioned for Liu Xianyang to head ahead of them and prepare the residence. Then she walked casually along the street with her son and explained, besides the main road used to climb the mountain, Righteous Sun Mountain has its own special Sword Dao inheritance. Over the generations, 6 separate paths have reached the summit. That means Righteous Sun Mountain has produced 6 genuine sword immortals who successfully proved their Dao, the boy sneered. No matter how thick an old calendar is, what use is it? How many years can a sect survive by living on past achievements? Among the cultivators who managed to enter this town, whether we compare groups or families, which one of us doesn't have wealthy and powerful ancestors? The woman held her son's hand and smiled. Then do you know that over the last 100 years, 2 new sword paths at Righteous Sun Mountain are close to reaching the summit? That little girl about your age is especially remarkable. She can come and go freely on Sword Peak, where Sword Key runs wild. She can remain there for an extremely long time. Even compared with several old ancestors of Righteous Sun Mountain, she is hardly inferior. The boy froze. Then he stopped walking and became furious. If that stupid girl's background is so extraordinary, mother, why didn't you tell me earlier? Then I wouldn't have argued with her all the way here and made her oppose me whenever she has nothing better to do. If I wait a few years and marry her, then naturally become Dao companions with her. Wouldn't that be a tremendous advantage for our Qingfeng city? The woman looked at the beautiful little face still full of childishness. The boy was angry like a young tiger. Instead of becoming angry herself, she laughed. You and that little girl both possess the potential to reach the upper 5 realms. Because of that, the marriage opportunities surrounding both of you will be far more complicated. Being too stubborn about one possibility may actually be harmful. Do you truly believe that girl currently hates you with all her heart? The boy frowned. Doesn't she? The woman said gently, let things follow their natural course. The boy suddenly became solemn. Mother, I don't like the one walking behind Liu Xianyang. I disliked him from the first glance. The woman asked curiously, why? The child thought carefully for a while before answering. There's something strange about him. He's different from Liu Zhengchun, who understands everything, and from Liu Xianyang, who understands nothing. And there's something else. I hate the way he looks at people. The woman assumed her son was simply acting childish again. She advised him. Inside the town, you cannot do whatever you please. But think about what will happen to everyone here once this piece of heaven and earth collapses. Doesn't that make you feel much better? The boy nodded. Then, almost unconsciously, he repeated the 2 words the straw-sandaled boy had spoken when they first met. An ant. After leaving the town, Chen Ping'an and Liu Xianyang soon saw the covered bridge. Liu Xianyang casually asked, why do you think Song Jixin's old man wanted this covered bridge so badly? They built it, fine. But why insist on covering up the old round stone bridge underneath? I heard they didn't even dismantle the stone bridge. It's like putting clothes over it. Wouldn't it get hot in summer? Ha ha ha. By the end, the tall boy had amused himself with his own joke. At the entrance to the covered bridge hung a plaque with 4 enormous golden characters. Wind rice, water stirs. Neither boy knew whose calligraphy it was. As they climbed the steps, Liu Xianyang stamped hard several times. Then he lowered his voice mysteriously. Old man Yao once told me there was something strange beneath these steps. He said that while the covered bridge was being built, one night Song Jixin's father ordered people to dig a huge pit right here. They buried a pile of porcelain jars as tall as a person. Scared? Chen Ping'an said irritably. What's there to be afraid of? The 2 entered the cool wooden corridor. Liu Xianyang lowered his voice again. You think maybe several people drowned in the deep pool beneath the bridge, so they invited monks and Taoists to suppress evil spirits. Chen Ping'an had never liked speaking carelessly about ghosts and gods. Liu Xianyang received no answer. He quickly lost interest in the topic. The wooden-covered bridge had only recently been completed. The scent of paint and fragrant timber still lingered in the air. Every main support beam had been cut from ancient trees deep in the mountains. Dragging them out had been extraordinarily difficult. The stream wound around the mountains, and under normal conditions the water was too shallow to carry such massive logs, so the workers had chosen days of heavy rain. The mountain roads became muddy and slippery. One careless step could send a man into a raging flood. Transporting the timber had been extremely dangerous. Fortunately, no townspeople died during that undertaking. Some said Master Qi himself had come to help. Jixin personally taught the workers how to move and guide the logs. That was why the entire journey out of the mountains ended safely. When they reached the northern steps of the covered bridge, Liu Xianyang suddenly dropped onto a long stone slab. Chen Ping'an had no choice but to sit beside him. Liu Xianyang smiled. If it weren't for me, do you think you and Song Changjing could have become good friends? Chen Ping'an shook his head. Maybe our relationship would be slightly better. But not much. Liu Xianyang looked curious. Why? You two are neighbors. You're almost the same age. To be fair, Song Jixin likes showing off his learning, and the things he says can be unpleasant, but he doesn't seem to have done anything truly wicked. You're easy to get along with, so why wouldn't it work? Chen Ping'an smiled. Let's not talk about that anymore. When we reach the forge, don't fool around. Whether you can keep your family armor may depend on whether Master Ruan truly accepts you as an inner disciple. I know. Chen Ping'an, seriously, you need to fix this habit of nagging. Otherwise you'll annoy someone to death one day. Liu Xianyang leaned backward. He rested the back of his head against the upper step and stared at the vast blue sky. You traveled far with Old Man Yao. You climbed high mountains too. Did you ever actually see the scenery beyond this place? Chen Ping'an casually pulled up a stalk of licorice. He brushed away the dirt and placed it in his mouth. His words came out slightly muffled. The farthest trip was probably the year before last. Old Man Yao and I went out and returned in about a week. We had to circle around more than 10 sealed mountains. In the end, we reached a strange mountain. It was terrifyingly high. You probably won't believe me, but when we reached the middle of the mountain and looked around, there were clouds everywhere. Finally, Old Man Yao and I struggled all the way to the summit, and then Liu Xianyang waited and waited. No more words came. He turned his head and laughed. No one nags through half a story and then stops. Finish it. Chen Ping'an looked somewhat sad. You know, Old Man Yao never thought much of me. He almost never explained principles to me. He didn't want to teach me the true porcelain firing craft either. Every time we entered the mountains, he hardly spoke. Sometimes, from the moment we left until the moment we returned to the dragon kiln, he might not say more than a few sentences. But when we reached the summit that time, maybe he was in a good mood. He suddenly talked much more than usual. He told me I could look at the scenery from up there. Looking was fine. But once we descended the mountain, I shouldn't go around boasting about it. A person should keep his head down and work hard. If all you know is how to flap your lips, then even if you leave the town someday, you'll only embarrass yourself. Liu Xianyang comforted him. I'm not trying to say good things about Old Man Yao, but even if he didn't like you, he didn't hate you either. He had that rotten temper with everyone. He wasn't much better with me. Chen Ping'an nodded. That's why I'm actually very grateful to Old Man Yao. Liu Xianyang suddenly became angry. You've talked all this time and still haven't told me what you saw. Chen Ping'an stretched out a hand and pointed east. The mountain we climbed was already very high. But when I looked from the summit, farther east there was another mountain even higher. I can't explain how high it was, Liu Xianyang cursed. So you only saw another tall mountain? Damn it, I thought you saw immortals riding clouds through the sky. Chen Ping'an thought for a moment. Then his face filled with longing. Maybe there really are immortals on that mountain. Liu Ping'an. Do you think immortals still need to eat, drink, piss, and shit? Chen Ping'an rubbed his chin. If immortals need to shit too, that does sound a little strange. Liu Xianyang suddenly slapped Chen Ping'an hard on the head. Then he sprang up and ran. Wasn't that an immortal shitting on your head just now? Liu Xianyang had never known how to control his strength. The slap left Chen Ping'an slightly dizzy. He did not bother chasing the tall boy. After standing, he muttered, When thunder sounds, could that be immortals snoring in their sleep? And if it rains, surely immortals aren't pissing from the sky. If so, we're all in terrible trouble. Chen Ping'an quickened his steps to catch Liu Xianyang. Bickering all the way, they finally reached the forge beside the stream. 7 or 8 thatched huts and earthen houses had already been built. In Chen Ping'an's eyes, every single one of them represented a pile of money. There was also a large group of town boys and young men digging wells. Most of the boys their age had once been dragon kiln apprentices like Liu Xianyang. After the emperor had taken away their porcelain rice bowls, being able to earn an iron rice bowl at the forge was already considered very good luck. According to Liu Xianyang, however, most of the helpers were only temporary laborers. Master Ruan had said he would accept at most a few true inner disciples. Everyone else could become little more than servants. Liu Xianyang waved. Wait here, I'll go greet Master Ruan. I'll see whether I can bring you over to watch the forging. Tixk. If you saw what his daughter looks like when she hammers iron, I guarantee it would scare you to death. Chen Ping'an remained where he was. He did not wander around. Looking in every direction, he saw the beginnings of 7 or 8 wells. Their mouths already had pulley frames and protective rails. At several, Workers carrying baskets over their heads kept climbing out. Chen Ping'an watched the busy well diggers for a while. Then, out of habit, he crouched and picked up a handful of earth. He slowly rubbed it between his palms. It felt moist. But in truth, it was not wet soil. Quite the opposite. It was dry earth, only a special final stage of dry earth. According to Old Man Yao, this was called 7th month flowing fire earth. Its nature naturally shifted toward cool warmth. It was not excessively dry, it remained flexible. And that meant the walls of a well were less likely to collapse during reinforcement. Clearly, even if Master Ruan was not a professional well digger, he was absolutely no outsider to the craft. Chen Ping'an simply could not understand why anyone needed so many wells in an area this size. He turned his head toward the stream, then he grinned. To the straw-sandaled boy, this nameless stream had now become a treasure vault packed with gold and silver. Still, after gathering snake gallstones tonight, Chen Ping'an intended to secretly return to Mud Bottle Alley. According to what Gukan had told him before leaving town, Chen Ping'an needed to retrieve something hidden beneath the water jar in Gukan's courtyard. Gukan had left too hurriedly to explain. He had only said it was his treasure. Even his mother did not know where he had hidden it. Thinking of that little snot-nosed brat made Chen Ping'an smile. Years ago, Chen Ping'an had followed behind Liu Xianyang to catch fish, capture snakes, and raid bird nests. After Chen Ping'an himself became a young man, someone else began trailing behind him. To the straw-sandaled boy, who had no family left to rely upon, one was his older brother. The other was his younger brother. One was someone whose kindness he needed to repay. The other was someone he needed to take care of. That was why Chen Ping'an had lived very hard all these years, but he had never felt his life was bitter. Liu Xianyang soon returned wearing a basket on his back. Chen Ping'an was standing beside a well, watching workers haul earth from below. Liu Xianyang kicked him in the backside. The straw-sandaled boy nearly fell face first. When he turned and saw who it was, he did not bother arguing. Liu Xianyang said casually, "It's settled. Master Ruan says that for the next few days I need to behave and stop running around. During the day, I dig wells. At night, I forge iron. After about a week and a half, I'll officially count as his first disciple in this town." He called it something like his founding disciple. "I found this basket for you. I'll help you collect stones. We'll gather them from the forge all the way to the covered bridge. But we agreed beforehand. I'm not helping you at that deep pool by Green Ox Ridge. Master Ruan says that during these days, if I dare take even half a step beyond the north or west side of the covered bridge, he'll chop off my legs." Liu Xianyang threw an arm around Chen Ping'an's neck and lowered his voice. "Master Ruan says the town is something that cannot be discarded. He also says the outsiders who came here all have to follow an extremely strange ancient rule. They can be merchants and make fair trades. They can bargain and try to profit. They can even become beggars. But the one thing they absolutely cannot do is steal. He says that in this place, old heaven won't doze off or close its eyes. It'll keep watching us. Tell me that doesn't sound frightening. I'm scared just hearing it." Liu Xianyang suddenly threatened him. "Chen, you can keep staying at my house. But don't let me come back one day and discover you sold my family's treasure armor." Chen Ping'an punched him in the chest. Liu Xianyang immediately released his neck and rubbed the spot several times before his breathing returned to normal. He cursed. "You skinny monkey look like a bamboo pole, so why are you this strong? Is it because you followed Old Man Yao over 100 li of mountain roads every few days? Or because you spent months cutting firewood and burning charcoal deep in the mountains?" Chen Ping'an smiled. "Either way, I can carry a basket full of stones and still run back to town before you." Liu Xianyang looked at him sideways. "Then why don't we compete to see who can hold his breath longer?" They approached the stream. Chen Ping'an bent down and rolled up his trouser legs. Casually, he answered, "I'm not interested in competing over a single breath of pride." Before entering the water, Chen Ping'an pulled up a large amount of spring grass along the bank and used it to line the basket. He kept nagging Liu Xianyang that after every 20 stones, they needed to add another layer of grass. Liu Xianyang angrily tossed the basket toward Chen Ping'an. Chen Ping'an refused to carry it. He said that if he carried the basket, then with Liu Xianyang's impatient personality, the tall boy would certainly throw stones directly inside. That would break Chen Ping'an's heart. Liu Xianyang almost abandoned the entire job on the spot. These brightly colored stones had been worth absolutely nothing for thousands of years. How had they suddenly become so precious the moment they reached Chen Ping'an's hands? And now he was even complaining that Great Master Liu's technique was not gentle enough? In the end, the tall boy still entered the stream reluctantly. Chen Ping'an waded from side to side. He intended to scour this entire stretch as thoroughly as possible. The water here generally reached their knees. In deeper sections, it came to their waists. Occasionally, there were holes deep enough to cover a person's head. Most had formed where large stones piled together. Those places were Liu Xianyang's chance to display his skill. He reached into wide cracks and even beneath layers of stone, pulling out the snake gall stones Chen Ping'an wanted. Of course, Chen Ping'an could do the same. It simply required much more effort and time. They had not yet reached the covered bridge when the basket was already 70 or 80% full. Among the stones was one especially striking dark green snake gall stone. Liu Xianyang had dived into the deepest section 3 times before finally pulling it free. It was as large as a palm. Tiny golden specks were scattered throughout it. Its internal patterns resembled ripples on water. The stone itself was hard and fine, and astonishingly heavy in the hand. When Chen Ping'an ran his palm over its surface, he could even feel faint ridges and waves. Anyone who was not blind could tell the stone was extraordinary. Eventually, the two boys sat side by side on a large rock in the stream. Liu Xianyang braced both hands behind him and watched the water flow slowly past. "Chen Ping'an, have you ever thought about leaving the town someday?" Chen Ping'an answered. "Not yet. If you leave home, you need money. And if I go, who looks after the house? If no one helps clean and repair it, what if it collapses one day? And I need to visit my parents' graves often and clear away the weeds." Liu Xianyang looked helpless. "Why are you always thinking about so many useless things? No wonder Song Jixin says you have the fate of a ghost trapped behind a wall. You'll spend your whole life circling this fart-sized place and never get out." Chen Ping'an turned and smiled. "Do you remember what I told you last time? About that tree?" Liu Xianyang said irritably. "A tree growing on a grave. What's so amazing about that? Besides, that grave belongs to the ancestors of another branch of the Chen clan. It has nothing to do with you, Chen Ping'an." Chen Ping'an sat cross-legged. He sighed softly. "I wonder whether there are many people surnamed Chen outside the town." Liu Xianyang said, "I don't know about outside, but inside the town there are only a handful. And apart from you, it seems all of them are descendants of servants attached to the 4 great surnames and 10 major clans. Generation after generation, they're still servants. The ridiculous part is that these people act like cattle and horses inside those great estates. They bow and scrape, but the moment they step outside and see someone poorer, their faces change. They start looking down on people with a dog's eyes. So old man Yao was right. If you, Chen Ping'an, ever go work as someone else's servant, then the branch of the Chen clan that never left this town will have been completely wiped out." According to old man Yao, 2 branches of the Chen clan had been among the earliest to leave the town. One of those branches left extremely long ago. Chen Ping'an's own branch had once flourished too. But that once was so distant that even old man Yao could not say how many centuries had passed. 500 years? 800? 1,000? Later the family split into several households. Their numbers gradually dwindled. Perhaps all their luck had been carried away by the branch that migrated outside. Their ancestral incense slowly died out. Many graves were eventually left without descendants to maintain them. Worse still, most of those graves lay on mountain peaks that successive imperial kiln supervisors ordered sealed. The last time old man Yao took Chen Ping'an into the mountains, they passed one particular mountain. The old man pointed toward a place and said that an ancestor from another Chen branch had been buried there. The grave occupied excellent feng shui. As for Chen Ping'an's own branch, old man Yao said not even an immortal could find its ancestral grave anymore. For centuries, the descendants of this branch had achieved nothing. They declined generation after generation. Their only remaining pride was that they had stubbornly refused to become slaves or servants of the 4 great surnames and 10 major clans. Chen Ping'an once secretly searched for the ancestral grave old man Yao mentioned. When he arrived, he saw only weeds. Many rabbits and foxes moved through the grass. There was no grave, there was only a tree the straw-sandaled old boy could not identify. It was not particularly tall. Compared with the old scholar tree in town, it was much smaller. Wild grass in clumps. Foxes and rabbits darting through the brush. Lonely and desolate. One solitary tree standing there alone. Chen Ping'an shook his head. "Before my mother died, she made me swear something. She said I could beg for food if I had to. But even if I starved to death, I must never become a servant in someone else's house." Liu Xianyang blurted out. "Didn't your mother also make you swear before she died that you would never become a dragon kiln apprentice?" The straw-sandaled boy's expression dimmed. He did not argue, nor did he become angry after having a sore point exposed. Liu Xianyang immediately felt guilty. But he was not the kind of person who could easily say the words, "I'm sorry." So he pretended nothing had happened. He stood. "Come on. Let's go dig wells. Oh right, I still need to talk to Master Ruan and see whether I can get you hired here as temporary help. If you work here, gathering stones will be easier too," Chen Ping'an said. "There's no rush. Let's wait until those 2 groups finally give up and leave town. For now, I'll help you watch us the house," Liu Xianyang asked curiously. "Why do you think becoming Master Ruan's disciple can help me escape this disaster?" Chen Ping'an thought for a moment. He was not entirely certain. It's like when rain suddenly starts falling. You have to find an eave to shelter beneath, right? Liu Xianyang turned and looked toward the sword forge. Who exactly is Master Ruan? He doesn't look especially powerful. Can he really suppress those two groups? Chen Ping'an comforted him. You can't judge a person only by appearance. Liu Xianyang turned back. You look poor, Chen Ping'an. Does that mean you're poor? Chen Ping'an had no answer. Liu Xianyang stood. Need help carrying the stones to the covered bridge? Chen Ping'an shook his head. No, they aren't heavy. Remember to return my basket next time. After saying that, Liu Xianyang jumped directly from the rock. He strode quickly through the stream, kicking up countless splashes. Chen Ping'an lifted the basket. He carefully climbed down from the boulder. After reaching the bank, he slowly headed toward the covered bridge. He had not gone far when footsteps sounded behind him. Chen Ping'an turned. It was Liu Xianyang. Warm early spring sunlight fell across the tall boy. Liu Xianyang snatched the basket from Chen Ping'an's hands, slung it onto his own back, then turned and mocked him. From far away, you carrying that basket looked like a grasshopper hauling a boulder. Too pitiful. So great Master Liu took mercy on you. I'll carry it to the covered bridge. The two boys walked together through the spring wind. Chen, once I master my craft, I'm definitely going out to travel the world. I'll marry a wife even prettier than Jigui. I'll drink the most expensive and delicious wine, live in the biggest house, and ride the fastest horse, Chen Ping'an said. I want to see high mountains and great rivers much larger than our little streams. No matter what, I, Liu Xianyang, absolutely refuse to spend my entire life here. In the spring wind, the tall boy was filled with longing for the future. The straw-sandaled boy held a stalk of grass between his lips. He said nothing. He simply listened. Chen Ping'an carried the basket of stones back to Liu Xianyang's courtyard. As before, he selected several pieces he liked best and took them into the side room. The rest he left in the kitchen. After carefully locking both the house and courtyard gates, he ran back to Mud Bottle Alley. When he reached his own home, Ning Yao was sitting in the courtyard sunning herself. Chen Ping'an greeted her, then immediately began decocting medicine. From the courtyard next door came the constant sound of chopping. That was strange. In the eyes of outsiders, Song Jixin might be a boy without father or mother nearby, but he had never needed to worry about food or clothing. In fact, he always had plenty of spending money. He certainly did not live as extravagantly as the young masters of the 4 great surnames, but compared with the direct descendants of the 10 major clans, he was not much worse off. Brushes, ink, paper, inkstones. Elegant objects for the study. Luxuries Chen Ping'an had never seen or even heard of. Every few days, something new would be delivered to Song Jixin's room. Song Jixin had never needed to live a life of exhausting labor. Dirty work was always left to Jigui. Cutting firewood was too tiring. Every year, Song Jixin simply bought piles of firewood and charcoal. Yet while Chen Ping'an prepared Ning Yao's medicinal decoction, the sound of chopping from the neighboring courtyard never stopped. When Ning Yao began drinking her medicine, Chen Ping'an finally could not resist. He walked to the wall, rose onto his toes, and looked over. Jigui was holding a kitchen knife. She was hacking apart a person, or rather, a human-shaped figure carved from wood. Chen Ping'an had worked with kilns for years. He had handled many good materials and cut down countless trees. One glance was enough for him to recognize that the wood was unusual. Its surface gleamed like jade. It was definitely ancient. The wooden figure was covered in black and red spots. Jigui had already chopped it into several pieces. She suddenly turned her head and noticed Chen Ping'an. Her face was covered with sweat and grime. She lifted a hand and wiped at it before forcing a smile. You're back. I wanted to borrow your wood-cutting knife earlier, but that guest in your house refused to open the door for me. Chen Ping'an froze for a moment. I'll get it for you. When you first start, don't use too much force. A wood-cutting blade isn't like a kitchen knife. It slips easily. Be careful not to hurt yourself. Jigui sat on a small stool, completely exhausted. She waved. I know. Go get it. Chen Ping'an returned carrying the wood-cutting knife. Jigui was already standing on the other side of the wall. She smiled. Do you know what that is? Chen Ping'an shook his head. No. Jigui did not give him the answer. She turned around, sat on the stool again, and continued chopping with all her strength. Her movements were stiff. Her posture was wrong in every possible way. She wasted strength and gained very little. Watching her made Chen Ping'an anxious. But since she had not asked for help, he did not interfere. He turned around. Ning Yao was no longer in the courtyard. Chen Ping'an suddenly remembered something. He quickly went inside and placed an object on the table opposite the girl in black. It was a snake gallstone. It fit perfectly in one palm. It looked almost like a frozen gallbladder, smooth in texture and pure in color. Ning Yao looked puzzled. Chen Ping'an smiled. Miss Ning, this is for you. The saber never left her side. She suddenly asked, is this the one you like best? Chen Ping'an looked a little embarrassed. This one probably ranks 4th. I kept the best 3. Only then did Ning Yao accept it. She pinched the stone between 2 fingers and raised it above her head. Sunlight came through the window and passed through the stone. Ning Yao tilted her head and narrowed her eyes. She carefully examined the fine patterns inside. She looked at the stone. The boy looked at her. Late that night, a boy silently slipped into Mud Bottle Alley. He moved like a stray cat hunting after dark. Without making a sound, he entered Gukan's courtyard. He found the water jar in one corner and crouched beside it. A row of snake gall stones that had been arranged beneath the jar had been disturbed. Someone had already searched through them. Clearly, that person understood the value of these stones far better than Chen Ping'an once had. Gukan was the only strange child in town who had ever enjoyed collecting snake gall stones. No matter how many he found in the stream, he only carried one home each time. The child selected whichever stone happened to please his eye most. Day after day, month after month, he had accumulated 50 or 60. He used them to prop up the water jar. Chen Ping'an moved aside the colorful but dried-out stones. Once he saw that the earth beneath the jar showed no signs of being dug up, he finally relaxed. Using his right hand, he began digging carefully, inch by inch. Eventually, his fingers touched oil paper. His heart stirred. His movement slowed. At last, he pulled out an object wrapped in layers of oil paper. Judging by its shape, it seemed to be a book. Chen Ping'an tucked it into his robe. Then he filled the hole again. Afterward, he studied the pile of snake gall stones more carefully. The stones left here were all dead. Compared with those Chen Ping'an had recently pulled from the stream, everything about them was different. Their colors, their internal patterns, their weight. The stones before him resembled old people whose vitality had already faded. The stones Chen Ping'an collected from the stream were like newborn children, full of vigorous life. After thinking for a while, Chen Ping'an decided to leave Mud Bottle Alley by passing his own house. When he reached Song Jixin's courtyard gate, he heard a creak. A door opened. Chen Ping'an had no choice but to pretend he had come to knock on his own door. He called, "Miss Ning, are you asleep? I came back to get something." A lamp inside almost immediately. Ning Yao came out and opened the courtyard gate for him. Next door, Zhigui slowly stepped out of her room. When she entered the courtyard, she caught a vague glimpse of Chen Ping'an. She was holding an old yellowed book against her chest. Zhigui tilted her head back and forth and clicked her tongue. Her expression made it seem as though she had just discovered a pair of shameless lovers meeting in secret. She stood alone in Mud Bottle Alley, brimming with strange vitality. Her eyes turned golden in the darkness, cold, divine. The beautiful girl looked like a flood dragon trapped inside a narrow crack between stones. As though the moment she escaped the alley, she would cross rivers, rise into the sky, and transform into a true dragon's. Ning Yao allowed Chen Ping'an into the courtyard and even into the house. But her expression was terrible. She sat beside the table. One hand rested on the scabbard. Her fingers tapped lightly against the saber's hilt. Only after Chen Ping'an was certain Zhigui had gone into the alley did he explain awkwardly. "I went to Gukan's house to retrieve something. But she happened to come outside right then, so I had no choice but to hide here." "Miss Ning, please don't misunderstand," Ning Yao asked. "What did you retrieve?" Chen Ping'an hesitated. Then he pulled out the oil paper-wrapped object. "I don't know yet." Ning Yao turned her back. "Open it yourself first, then decide whether you want to let me know." Chen Ping'an nodded. He sat opposite her and began peeling away the layers of oil paper. Dirt kept falling onto the table. At last, an ancient book was revealed. There were only 2 characters on the cover. Chen Ping'an recognized one of them, Mountain. He placed the ancient book on the table, rotated it around, and pushed it toward Ning Yao. Curiously, he asked, "Miss Ning, how do you read this character?" Ning Yao turned back and lowered her head. "Shake." The book's title was, Mountain Shaking. Mountain Shaking? Ning Yao frowned. She reached out to pick up the ancient book. Unexpectedly, Chen Ping'an pulled it backward. Ning Yao's entire body stiffened. Fury immediately rose within her. Never in her life had anyone humiliated her like this. Her parents were both great sword immortals at or above the 12th realm. That alone was extraordinary. Ning Yao herself had been praised from birth as one of the finest sword immortal seedlings imaginable. Even after running away from home for years, the only humiliations she had suffered came from losing sword contests or battles. No one had ever insulted her character. A shabby little book like this. Did Chen Ping'an truly think Ning Yao needed to use petty tricks to secretly read it? Or seize it for herself? Ning Yao tightened her hand around the saber hilt. Her long, narrow brows drew together. Bright eyes and red lips. Those words were probably made to describe a girl like her. In truth, if one studied Ning Yao carefully, she was extraordinarily beautiful. It was only that the solemn, sharp aura surrounding her completely overwhelmed the softness of her features. Then one sentence from the straw-sandaled boy achieved the impossible. It transformed her fury into something that nearly made her choke on her own breath. "Miss Ning, this book came from Gukan's house. I don't think what I did really counts as stealing, but I still need to return it to him later. But we're friends, so no matter what is written inside, I hope that after you read it, you'll keep it to yourself." Ning Yao took a deep breath. Then she slapped the table and glared at him. "Read it yourself. I don't care." Chen Ping'an's next sentence left her unsure whether to laugh or cry. "Miss Ning, I can't read. Will you teach me?" Ning Yao sneered. "Aren't you afraid I'll take advantage of you? Think about it. Gu Kan is clearly someone who inherited ancestral fortune. Even a natural sword embryo like Liu Xianyang can't compare with him. Across 1,000 years of this town's history, there probably haven't been many people like him. So how could the treasure he valued so much possibly be bad? Aren't you afraid I'll see something priceless and become greedy? That I'll steal this invaluable secret manual for myself?" A dim lamp burned between them. The straw-sandaled boy smiled faintly. He did not explain himself. Ning Yao snorted. She moved her chair aside and gestured for him to sit beside her. Chen Ping'an, however, remained motionless for a long time. Ning Yao laughed angrily. "With one hand, I, Ning Yao, could beat 100 people like you." Halfway through the sentence, she found it funny herself. "What? Are you afraid I'll take advantage of you?" Chen Ping'an finally sat beside her. He felt awkward and nervous. Ning Yao, meanwhile, was still trapped by her own previous sentence. The more she thought about it, the more she liked it. She muttered, "One hand can beat 100 Chen Ping'ans. That expression could be used in all kinds of situations. Say I spar with someone and they lose. I could throw back a line like, 'Someone with the strength of only 3,000 Chen Ping'ans dares challenge me?' That sounds pretty good. And if I encounter some primordial savage beast or a great flood dragon in a deep pool, I could tell myself, 'That monster is worth 30,000 Chen Ping'ans. Run!' Haha, excellent, excellent." Chen Ping'an thought it all very strange. Sitting shoulder to shoulder with the girl in black, he suddenly began smiling foolishly. The poor girl laughed at the boy whose home contained almost nothing. And somehow the boy suddenly felt rich. Neither of them realized that the joking phrase, "One hand can beat 100 Chen Ping'ans," would one day reveal an astonishing weight and power in the years ahead. Especially after the straw-sandaled boy was no longer a boy. The farther the years went, the more true that became. Ning Yao finally recovered. She coughed once, straightened her back and picked up the ancient book. She flipped through it rapidly. Then she closed it. One slender finger tapped several times against the cover. She turned and said coolly, "This is a fist manual. The martial art is called mountain shaking. By the customs of wandering martial artists, you could call the book the Mountain Shaking Fist Manual." Chen Ping'an's face was full of expectation, and then Ning Yao barely suppressed the urge to roll her eyes. She tried to sound solemn. She opened to the first page. Her slender white finger moved down the preface as she read aloud. "In my homeland there is a tiny creature known as the ant. Unlike others of its kind, it spends its entire life carrying mountain stones into water." She continued, "My fist art distinguishes life and death, not victory and defeat. It values spirit and intent rather than elaborate techniques. When the 6 forms recorded in this volume are practiced to complete mastery, their killing force grows increasingly severe. The slightest carelessness may injure a person's internal organs." Ning Yao continued reading. "Although the Mountain Shaking Fist Manual has yet to join the ranks of the great and famous martial classics of the age, I have always believed that among all martial arts beneath heaven, there must be a place for this fist. I hope that one destined to receive it may carry it forward and bring it to greatness." Ning Yao patiently read the entire preface for Chen Ping'an. The book itself was thin. The whole fist manual contained only 6 forms, yet the preface was surprisingly long. When Ning Yao finally finished, she pushed the book toward Chen Ping'an. She patted him on the shoulder. Her tone was perfunctory. "Take it. Don't let anyone steal it." Chen Ping'an nodded. Then he cautiously reached out and picked up the ancient fist manual. Ning Yao almost laughed again. The book was sitting on a table. Did he think it would suddenly grow legs and escape? Or was Chen Ping'an afraid it might fall? Chen Ping'an rubbed his right hand hard against the front of his clothes. Only then did he open the book. He studied every character in the preface. Before long, the straw-sandaled boy looked as though he had wandered into dense fog. Ning Yao sat sideways. One elbow rested on the table. She studied the boy's profile. Then she teased him. "Do you feel rich now? From now on, will you chop firewood with an iron axe and eat rice from a golden bowl?" Without lifting his head, Chen Ping'an carefully examined the writing that looked almost like a heavenly script to him. He answered honestly, "Actually, when I saw your eyes just now, I already knew this fist manual probably wasn't very good. But it doesn't matter. For me, it's already enough." Ning Yao raised an eyebrow. She answered just as frankly, "Most of the things I've seen, or even heard about, are genuinely excellent, so I can usually tell whether something is good or bad. But exactly how good or exactly how bad, that's harder for me to judge." Chen Ping'an looked up. Then would this mountain-shaking fist manual count as good, but not especially good? Ning Yao said irritably. I honestly don't know how to describe just how terrible this broken fist manual is. The straw-sandaled boy blinked several times. Then the corners of his mouth lifted into a smile.